Be me, Ops Lead for Omni Logistics Solutions, Veridian City's central nervous system for everything from hospital supplies to emergency construction materials. We moved mountains of goods daily, a finely tuned machine, or at least it used to be. My job was to keep the gears turning no matter what. Be not me. Brenda Finch, our new HR manager. She arrived 3 months ago, fresh out of some corporate MBA program, radiating an aura of self-importance and cheap perfume. Her office gleamed, all minimalist white and glass, a stark contrast to the gritty, lived-in chaos of my warehouse floor. Brenda's arrival was heralded by a company-wide email promising optimization and synergy. We all knew what that meant: layoffs and budget cuts disguised in corporate speak. Her specialty, it quickly became apparent, was the weaponization of the employee handbook. Every single page, every clause, was a cudgel to keep the bottom-tier workers in line. Her smile was plastic, her eyes cold, always scanning for some perceived infraction. She seemed to view the entire workforce as a collection of potential lawsuits waiting to happen, or worse, a drain on her precious quarterly bonus targets. The first hint of her destructive brilliance came 2 weeks in. A critical shipment of medical reagents, needed for Veridian General Hospital, was delayed by a freak snowstorm. Our night crew was already stretched thin. I'd approved 3 hours of overtime for a small team to unload and prep the urgent freight immediately upon arrival. This was standard procedure for life-or-death supplies. Brenda, without consulting me or even understanding the cargo, stormed onto the floor at midnight. Her voice, usually a carefully modulated purr, was a shrill protest. "Absolutely not," she declared, waving a printed-out copy of the employee handbook at my bewildered foreman. Section 4.3, subsection B, all overtime must be pre-approved by a departmental head and HR. This was not. I explained the urgency, the nature of the cargo, the hospital's impending shortage. I showed her the emergency request codes, highlighted the city contracts. She just shook her head, her perfectly coiffed blonde bob unmoving. "Rules are rules, Mr. Jenkins. Cost centers must be maintained. Find non-overtime solutions." We ended up making a junior forklift driver who was already on shift pull a double for straight pay, endangering their safety and the integrity of the cargo. The reagents went out hours late. Veridian General called, furious. My report detailing the delay landed on deaf ears. Brenda simply filed my explanation as lack of foresight from operations. A month later, the pressure mounted. Brenda initiated a cost-efficiency audit targeting vehicle maintenance. Our fleet, a mix of heavy-duty semi-trucks and local delivery vans, was the backbone of Veridian City's supply chain. Regular maintenance was not just good practice. It was mandated by state transportation safety regulations. I had a standing order for preventative checks every 10,000 miles or 3 months, whichever came first. Brenda, clutching a spreadsheet, decided this was excessive. "We can push these out to 15,000 miles, she chirped during a departmental meeting, her eyes gleaming with imagined savings. "And quarterly checks. Semi-annual for non-critical assets. The Employee Handbook Section 7.1 outlines optimal resource allocation. Your current schedule is costing us thousands." I countered, citing state regulations, insurance clauses, even our own company's historical data on breakdowns. Our mechanics, grizzled veterans who knew every squeak and rattle of those engines, backed me up. They explained how cutting corners led to catastrophic failures, not just costly repairs, but also potential accidents. Brenda simply smiled that serene, unnerving smile. "Regulations are guidelines, Mr. Jenkins. Cost efficiency is paramount. I'm sure your team can find ways to optimize their maintenance schedule within my new parameters. Perhaps less wrench-turning and more strategic planning." She made air quotes with her manicured fingers. I watched as her eyes glinted, a clear threat that any resistance would be logged as insubordination. I began documenting everything. The breaking point arrived 2 weeks ago. Veridian City was entering its annual Megafest season, a month-long series of cultural events that quadrupled the demand on our logistics. Every single year, without fail, we approved significant overtime for drivers, loaders, and dispatchers to manage the surge. It was budgeted, expected, and absolutely necessary to keep the city functioning. This year, Brenda sent out a company-wide memo, CCing all department heads and senior management. Effective immediately, all non-emergency overtime requests are suspended. Any overtime hours accrued must be explicitly justified by the direct intervention of the CEO or risk payroll deductions. It was a direct bypass of my authority, an unprecedented move. The memo referenced company-wide fiscal responsibility initiatives outlined in sections 2.1 and 4.3c of the updated employee handbook. My phone immediately started ringing off the hook. Drivers, dispatchers, and warehouse leads were frantic. We had 20 inbound trucks overloaded with festival supplies, medical tents, and enhanced sanitation equipment, all slated to arrive in the next 48 hours. Without overtime, these loads would sit on the docks. They'd miss delivery windows, spoil, or worse, create a public health hazard. I went straight to Brenda's office, my jaw tight. "Brenda, this is impossible. You understand what this means, right? We have critical infrastructure deliveries due. The city will grind to a halt. Ambulances won't get their oxygen, restaurants won't get food, event sanitation will fail." She leaned back in her ergonomic chair, a look of placid superiority on her face. "Mr. Jenkins, I understand numbers. Your overtime budget for MegaFest last year was 7% over projections. That is unacceptable. You need to do more with less. It's called efficiency." Her voice was dismissive, as if I were a child. "There is no doing more with less here," I stated, my voice dangerously calm. "This isn't about efficiency, it's about capacity. The volume is too high. If these trucks aren't unloaded and distributed on schedule, we'll have millions in spoilage, contractual penalties, and a severe disruption to Viridian City." Brenda steepled her fingers. "I have every faith in your team, Mr. Jenkins. Perhaps they simply need the motivation of a tighter deadline. Furthermore," she added, her eyes narrowing, "any failures in timely delivery due to capacity issues will, of course, be directly attributed to your departmental mismanagement. You are responsible for resource allocation within your parameters. Your parameters now include 0 unapproved overtime." That was the moment the switch flipped. The methodical hum of my brain, usually focused on logistics, shifted into a new gear. Read-only mode, I called it. No more arguments, no more pleading. Brenda had weaponized the handbook, and now, so would I spent the next 48 hours in a whirlwind of silent preparation. My office became a war room. Every email from Brenda, every memo, every one-on-one conversation I had with her was meticulously logged. I had a small, encrypted voice recorder in my pocket for our direct interactions, something I'd learned to carry after the medical reagent fiasco. I pulled out the company bylaws, our contracts with Viridian City, and yes, even the dreaded HR handbook Brenda cherished so dearly. My goal was simple: ensure every single step I took, or rather didn't take, was in perfect, undeniable compliance with Brenda's own directives. Malicious compliance. First, I drafted an email to Brenda, CCing her direct superior, the head of HR and the CFO. Subject: clarification, MegaFest overtime directive and operational impact. In it, I explicitly detailed the incoming load volumes, the critical nature of the supplies, and the historical necessity of overtime during MegaFest. I quoted Brenda's memo directly. Then I wrote, "Per your directive dated date of memo, all non-emergency overtime requests are suspended. As such, I will be instructing all operations personnel to adhere strictly to their scheduled shifts. This will inevitably result in list-specific disastrous consequences: delayed medical supplies, spoiled perishables, missed critical event setup windows, contractual penalties, potential public health issues due to sanitation equipment delays." I ended with, "Please confirm that my interpretation and planned actions based on your directive are correct." Brenda replied within the hour, a terse email. "Mr. Jenkins, your interpretation is correct. I reiterate, cost centers will be maintained. Efficiency is paramount. Any failures will be the responsibility of operations for lack of efficient planning." She failed to CC her superiors in this reply, a crucial error. I printed it, time-stamped it, and added it to my growing binder of evidence. Next, I sent out my own memo to all operations staff. Per HR directive Brenda's memo date, all overtime is suspended. You are to work your scheduled hours, and absolutely no more. All inbound shipments not processed within standard shift hours due to lack of personnel capacity are to be formally logged as pending HR resolution with photographic evidence of the unopened cargo doors and digital timestamps. I specifically instructed my team to take photos of every single parked truck, every unopened container, every pallet of critical supplies that couldn't be moved. They were to document the date, time, and the specific reason for delay. HR directive, no overtime for unloading/distribution. I provided them with a simple digital form for their phones, ensuring a clean, unalterable digital paper trail. My team, sensing the shift in the wind, complied with grim efficiency. They knew what was coming. The dam broke on Tuesday, day 2 of MegaFest. The city was a beehive of activity, but our warehouses were paralyzed. 25 trucks, full of medical-grade hand sanitizer, food provisions for the main festival kitchens, and critical stage construction components, sat idle in our yard. My team, diligently working their 8-hour shifts, simply couldn't touch them. The first frantic call came from the Viridian City Health Department. Their mobile medical clinics for the festival needed supplies by 10 a.m. We had a truck full of those supplies, but the driver had maxed out their legal driving hours, and there was no one left on shift to unload. Brenda's directive meant no one could be called in early, no one could stay late. My phone rang off the hook. The festival organizer, the head of city sanitation, even a panicked reporter who'd heard rumors of supply chain issues. Each call was met with my calm, rehearsed response. I understand your urgency. However, Omni Logistics Solutions is operating under a strict HR directive suspending all overtime. Without additional authorized labor, we are unable to process these shipments. I have documented the delay and attributed it to this directive. The chorus of angry voices grew. Trucks started backing up onto city streets, blocking intersections near our facility. News choppers, initially covering MegaFest, started circling our warehouse. The optics were terrible. A mountain of vital supplies just sitting there, inaccessible. Brenda finally exploded onto the warehouse floor around 2 p.m., her face a mask of furious disbelief. "What in God's name is happening, Jenkins?" she shrieked, pointing at the gridlock outside. "The mayor's office just called. They're threatening to fine us into oblivion. Why aren't these trucks moving?" "Per your directive, Brenda," I replied, my voice steady, my phone recording our interaction. "All non-emergency overtime is suspended. As you instructed, my team worked their scheduled hours. We simply do not have the capacity to process this volume without additional hours." I gestured to the rows of full trucks, then to the nearly empty docks inside, where my skeleton crew was clearing only what they could manage within their shifts. "This is unacceptable," she screamed, her face turning crimson. "You are deliberately sabotaging this operation. You are insubordinate. I told you to find efficiencies. I told you to get these deliveries out. And I specifically asked for clarification on your directive's impact," I calmly countered, pulling out my binder. "On date, at time, I sent you an email detailing the precise catastrophic consequences of zero overtime. Your reply confirmed my interpretation and stated, quote, any failures will be the responsibility of operations for lack of efficient planning. I have complied with your exact instructions." I opened the binder, pulling out the printed email chain, time-stamped and signed by me. Then I pulled out a stack of printouts, each a photo of a delayed truck, time-stamped with a digital note. "Pending HR resolution, no authorized overtime." "This entire situation, Brenda," I explained, holding up the documents, "is a direct result of your explicit directive to suspend all overtime, despite clear warnings of operational collapse. I documented every step, every warning, and your repeated confirmation of my correct interpretation of your cost-cutting measures." Just then, 2 men in expensive suits, accompanied by the CEO himself, strode onto the floor. Their faces were grim. The CEO, a man who usually only saw my department's quarterly reports, looked like he'd aged a decade in an hour. One of the men was the company's general counsel, the other a senior partner from a crisis management firm. "Brenda, what is going on here?" the CEO demanded, his voice strained. "The city is threatening to revoke our operating license. The news is running live footage of our warehouse gridlocked, blaming Omni Logistics for a public health hazard," Brenda stammered, pointing a trembling finger at me. He sabotaged us. He deliberately let this happen. He refused to work the overtime." "On the contrary, sir," I interjected, stepping forward, binder in hand. "I explicitly followed HR's directive. Here is the memo from Miss Finch, suspending all overtime. Here is my email to her, detailing the unavoidable consequences with her confirmation. And here is photographic evidence of every single delayed shipment, all logged as pending HR resolution due to the lack of authorized labor." I handed the binder to the CEO. He flipped through it, his face blanching with each page. The general counsel peered over his shoulder, occasionally gasping at a specific clause or photo. Brenda stood frozen, her carefully constructed facade crumbling around her, her eyes darting between me and the CEO, pure panic replacing her usual arrogance. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Within an hour, Brenda was escorted from the premises. Not a quiet walk, but a public, humiliating removal by 2 security guards, her designer handbag clutched to her chest. Her HR office was sealed, her computer taken. That night, my team worked a marathon overtime shift, authorized by the CEO himself, signing off on double time for everyone involved. We moved mountains of freight, but the damage was done. Megafest's opening ceremonies were delayed, supplies were spoiled, and Omni Logistics faced millions in fines and reputation damage. Update 1, 3 weeks later. Brenda was summarily fired for cause, accused of gross negligence and insubordination by deliberately overriding established operational protocols and ignoring direct warnings of catastrophic failure. The company cited the extensive paper trail I provided. The CEO made a public apology to Viridian City, admitting a failure in internal oversight and promising full restitution. My name was never mentioned publicly, but the unspoken acknowledgement in the executive suite was palpable. My department's budget was immediately increased. Update 2, 2 months later. I heard through the grapevine that Brenda tried to sue Omni Logistics for wrongful termination. Her case was immediately dismissed. The company had too much evidence, too many time-stamped documents, too many emails, and yes, too many audio recordings. Her career in corporate HR was effectively over, blacklisted across the entire industry. Apparently, a few other companies she'd worked for even started reviewing their own cost-saving directives from her tenure. Update 3, 6 months later. Walking past Brenda's old HR office, now occupied by a new, thankfully more sensible manager, I noticed a familiar face working in the building's cafeteria. Brenda Finch, hair less perfect, eyes hollow, serving lukewarm coffee and stale muffins. Her cost-saving initiatives had indeed paid off, just not for her. She made eye contact with me, a flicker of raw, desperate hatred in her eyes before quickly looking away. Some rules, it seems, are best followed to the letter, especially when your antagonist insists on writing them.